Hey YouTube. I've been meaning to do a proper video on my electronics workbench for a while. I had that few minute one where I briefly went over everything, but I meant to do something more in depth. And now I'm putting this together and I'm realizing I'm doing it at a time where I'm planning major revisions. But I've also realized I've I often hear when I'm holding my phone that there's this crinkly sound, so I'm trying to avoid that. Um, I've also found that I've been planning different revisions constantly, and I've just come to accept that it's a constantly evolving kind of organic part of my office. So I shouldn't really view any endpoint at which I'll make a video because there would ever be one. So I'm doing kind of a current state of the chaos video. It's not too bad right now. I mean, that has a ton of crap piled on it, but it's not terrible. Anyway, I've made some additions. Since last time, I've reorganized things that I used to do somewhere else. I'm not sure if I had the overhead lighting last time. But yeah, I found I wanted lighting further overhead and from behind me, so I didn't get glare at me or kind of washing out my working surface. And having multi-source light coming from above and behind me is much better to my preference. I have this kind of El Cheapo. I don't know if I want to rag on it too much. It's a price accessible electronic load, which is actually going away um, because of some things I'll show you in a bit. I got some Kikasui. I think Kikasui is how you pronounce it. They're 1980s, 1990s, rather high quality electronic loads. I have one disassembled up here. I took it apart to properly clean it. I found some issues, like I believe that's ABS. It was fragile after however many decades, either just exposed to time or temperature fluctuations or aerosolized machining oil, but that kind of shattered is the wrong word. I feel like exploded is the right word when I uh, unhooked it from this during disassembly. And apparently that's kind of a common thing because I've looked up Kikasui loads on eBay sold listings, and I've seen a fair number of them just missing this blue plastic front grille that covers the air intake. But anyway, that works. I just wanted it to look nice. So in order to get that, I've been meaning to add 3D printing to my capabilities. And I actually found one seller that was upgrading their setup. And I got a bundle deal on a set of a Mark III, a Prusa, all Prusas. I was only interested in Prusa after doing a lot of research. A Prusa Mark III, I think 3S, and a pair of minis, all with extensive upgrades, Bondtech extruders, um, Octoprint cameras, etc. We'll get to that in a sec. But, well, the printers kind of broke in transit. Uh, they weren't well padded, which was a shame. It means I ended up getting them for free, and they were insured, so the seller didn't get screwed over, so good for him. But they went from semi-expensive, ready for production printers to free but hobby repair them printers. Still, they're on the list. So last time I just had the Goodwill Instec kind of high count 5.5 digit not quite 6.5 digit multimeter. I've since added the venerable 34401A, and in fact, not too long ago, I actually got an Agilent model from an industrial auction site. They're physically local to me, and I bid on their auctions a lot. So I don't know if I'm going to keep it as the not quite 6.5 and a 34401A, or I'm going to go like two 34401As. But I found it's useful for me to have two bench meters. That's been useful on multiple occasions. You might see the EEV blog 121 gigawatt, or sorry, gigawatt meter. I found that on eBay for a good price and got that because it geeked me out. I was using the DE5000 for my LCR meter from that same industrial liquidation auction site. Look what I found there. Agilent LCR meter for like, I ended up getting for I think $115, so I'm happy about that. Completely clean, works perfectly. It just didn't have leads, and I got those on eBay. So yeah, really happy to add that to the bench. I don't believe I had this last time. So I had the soldering iron, the Heiko, and I had the Quick 861D for hot air, but I didn't have a desoldering iron. So this I also found for an excellent price on eBay, and I picked that up. Didn't have the bench computer. I've been doing, basically I started up an eBay store, and I've been attending auctions and buying and selling, and that's working out okay so far. That is one of a lot of computers that I got, as well as my new desktop there. And I decided, yeah, let's have an at-bench computer, just so I can have a schematic up there and not have to go and like turn around to look at a schematic and then turn back around here to work on my bench. Then I got this little El Cheapo but functional pull-out keyboard and mouse tray. That works fine. I also kind of, yeah, I mean, this works, but it's not the prettiest thing, and I do care about aesthetics. I might redo this at some point to make it look prettier. It does, like I said, it works, but it's kind of an ugly holder for the Heiko desoldering iron. So maybe I'll do something with that. Either remake it with a proper wire bender so the curves are nice and equal, or I'm still keeping an eye out for a non-spending $100 to get the holder for this, the proper one. I'm just not willing to put down like $100 for that holder. I'd rather stick with the wire, but if I see one for cheap, I'll pick it up. What else do we have that's new? I have all the stuff to hook up the row of outputs for this, and I still haven't done it. But then I'm not sure if I'm going to use this one anymore because of stuff in the garage I'll show you in a minute. I'm also planning, I don't know when, but potential major revisions. With this evolving as it is, and me learning lessons from building the physical bench itself, putting things together, making compromises on it, I have ideas for how to make a better version, and I don't know if I'll actually build a physically new bench. I'm considering it. It would be a lot of work, but if you're watching this and considering setting up your own, let me share with you some of the things that I did and found were problematic. So this is nice and solid. I used metal brackets and screws, and I drilled the screw holes out before I put the screws in. Very solid. I did this in our carport downstairs and then had to bring it upstairs, and it was quite difficult getting it up the stairs and into the room. I was able to do it, but I could have thought ahead and perhaps set up the shelving and connecting hardware to be more user-friendly, to enable me to repeatedly assemble and disassemble it. Either, like I've seen some setups where they'll have drilled in through here and they'll have proper bolts, and then in the back they'll drill in holes that will fit like 90-degree angle nuts. So you slide the nuts in and align them properly, and you put the bolts in and you thread them into those 90-degree angles. Like my original bed has this kind of thing, so you can assemble it and disassemble it over and over. And that kind of arrangement, or something similar, where it's designed to be assembled and disassembled, and not assembled once and permanently and be an absolute pain in the ass to take down, would have enabled me to build this and then move it in chunks much, much more easily, and then reassemble it here in my room. So that's a lesson learned. It would be more design work and a little bit more complicated hardware sourcing to do it that way, but completely doable. It would absolutely be doable. And that would be a better finished product, I believe. What else? The table. When I did this, I had been searching for a long time for a table that was the right size. This was the wrong size. I only found that out when I showed up. It had been advertised incorrectly, and I said, screw it. I don't want to wait any longer. I just want to get to build phase. So I have a 5-foot wide instead of 6-foot. And I've pulled the table out so it doesn't actually, hold on. So it doesn't actually touch all the way in the back, just to give me a little more room. But this is 30 inches. And I'm thinking my idea would be more like 36 to give me more depth. So that's another change I would make. This works okay. And I'm thinking that I'm not using it ideally. This offends my OCD nature. See that? Yeah. Because it's not one continuous magnet, it's a row of non-rare earth magnets just glued together, like inside this frame. So all of these have little higher magnetic field strength points at which they want to roll to, and not align just perfectly to look beautiful. So this happens, and it's a pain in the ass, and it just, like, you don't look perfect. I blame you, but really it's my fault. So that's another issue. I do have that 3D printer now. It's broken. I need to fix it, but all the broken stuff is 3D printed frame parts, so it's eminently fixable. And I'm thinking, I've seen a bunch of different designs for wear a screw drive set holders, and I'll probably go that route. I still do like the magnetic toolbars, like this. Those work great. I'm happy with those being there. Like, that's perfectly accessible to me. I'm good with it. This is a new edition. It's not really an electronics workbench thing. I use this also as my kind of just general desk area for when I'm packaging eBay stuff to go out. Like these are some of the things I got. Agilent rack mount power mainframes. Yeah, you can kind of see it. That's the kind of stuff that I'm doing on eBay, is industrial electronics and the kind of thing you see here. Although I also got this 34401A ideally to resell, but I kind of want to keep it. Oh well. What else? So we covered that. That's not really an electronics thing. It's a Rice Lake up to 30-pound scale. I use that for eBay shipping as well. But I like being able to measure whatever. So being able to accurately measure weight is nice as well, just for broad metrology's sake. What else? Aside from that being the screen for the computer, it's a TV, not a computer monitor, and I actually like that better. Like, all of my computer screens are TVs, in part because I can easily plug in multiple inputs. I set up a custom multi, how to say, on the Flipper Zero, you can program different infrared sequences. So I use it as a very expensive remote to press one button and have all 3 different brand TVs turn on at the same time. But anyway, with this, so with HDMI input, I have the I have my Canon M50 camera that I use for survey, and I figure why duplicate expensive equipment. So I have an adapter that puts it on this Amscope, and then I have a mini HDMI to HDMI adapter, so I can just route it directly to that and see it on the screen if I don't want to have my face right here to watch. I did try routing it through the computer, and I can do it because I got a USB HDMI capture device. But that's a little thin client thing, and it just doesn't have the horsepower for it, so it lags. So I tend to just plug it directly into the monitor and then just switch inputs. So I believe that's most of the new stuff up here. Plans. I'm considering getting a tall server rack mount rack for multiple purposes. There's more and more equipment that I'm getting that is rack mountable, and I'll show you some of that in the carport, but basically those. Also, I've been thinking about enclosure solutions for the 3D printers when I get those up and running. And they're either expensive for cheap little plastic tents, or they're more expensive for something relatively nice. Or you can just get a glass fronted server enclosure that's of the correct size for a quarter or less the price. $70, $100. This site, eargang.dev, they go over that. It's an excellent idea. They talk about getting a 15U or 12U enclosure, and that would give you space to put in a bit of insulation. It already comes with cable routing because it's a server enclosure for rack mount. It's genius. It's great. So I'm planning on integrating that for multiple purposes for all 3 of the 3D printers, probably right here. I'd do something else. That's an extravagant waste of space, having my cable management there. That'll probably migrate over to here, I'm thinking, or something of that like. And then I can have that server rack all down here. I can mount whichever of the HP boat anchor power supplies on it. I can put the 3D printer enclosures on it. And yeah, that'll give me a lot of utility for not a lot of money. I'm liking this idea. So I'm going to pause this video and then resume in the carport to show you some of the stuff we're working with. Okay, welcome to the carport. Sorry, the lighting isn't as great. So, yeah, a lot of Agilent boat anchor classic 1980s last first century power supplies. There was it was one of the auctions for the industrial liquidation site that's physically near me, and I got lots of like multiples of these. I'm going to be going through them, cleaning them, putting on eBay and Craigslist. Craigslist reaches a much smaller audience, of course, but shipping is like $100 a pop with these because they're so heavy. But I'll go through these and probably pick whichever one I want. And of course, I have options to choose from just to get the rack mount sides to rack mount that easily, since I have that hardware available to me now. We were talking about the Kikasui power or electronic loads. There's the handsome devil. That's what one of them looks like with everything intact. That's the plastic front. Then I got some Agilent 100-volt half amp power supplies. I'm probably going to add one of those to the bench as well. What else do we have? Yeah, it's like more industrial stuff. Computer stuff. Okay, 3D printers. Oh, poor baby. So yeah, we have like the two minis are here, and then that's not that. Yeah, there's the Mark III or Mark III's Plus, or it's somewhere in there. Poor little thing. But we're going to get these fixed, and we're going to get them integrated into the bench. And I am very looking forward to having these up and running, because once I have the printers up and running, I have a number of these now, I think 4 or 5 of them, and I'm going to be refurbishing them all and keeping either 1 or 2, because let's see if we can focus here. Yeah, they're all the same model. So they're 330 watts. So if I wanted to do like a high output battery array and I wanted to load more than 330 watts, or I was using these to certify that these are working, and some of these can put up like 2 kilowatt, then I'd need to daisy chain a few of these, and that's a reason to have more than one. What else do we have that I wanted to go over? And there's another one of the Kikasui electronic loads. That one came without that front face. Like I said, that's kind of a common thing that we see with those. So, yeah, planning to use the 3D printers, once those are up and running, to print replacement front blue grills, and also these little fine adjustment knobs. They are apparently parts that break as well, although probably just more from rough handling. But I have one intact one, so I can measure it and use that to get the specs, probably after a lot of tweaking and printing stuff that isn't quite right. And eventually get replacements for those as well, and bring these nice Japanese electronic loads up to spec and make them look really pretty. What else do we have? So there's the printers. I don't think there's anything else down here that I'm planning on integrating with the bench. I'm going to pause and look around so you're not waiting on me. Ah, yes. So we have some more of those 6700 Agilent mainframes, and I actually found a set of 4 modules. They're lower end modules, not precision ones, but still, it'll allow me to test all of these. And since I'm planning on getting a rack anyway, I may well keep one of these as one of my power options. That's kind of a maybe. These do have rather loud fans, but I mean, if I'm deciding to keep one and not resell it, I see no reason not to take it apart and see if I can find a Noctua replacement or something suitable that isn't quite as loud. I value the low sound. I might keep this one. Yeah, 30 volt, 25 amp, N5745A Agilent. So one or the other, maybe both. It's kind of a balance between what nice things do I want to keep for my lab and what do I want to sell and make money from. Yeah, we also have some transformers. I got a whole skid load of transformers, a bunch of different ones. But the relevant ones, we got some Variacs. I'm happy with that. So I'll be keeping one of the variable transformers for the lab because that's always a useful thing to have. And we'll get that integrated into the bench. And then we also have Fume management, which I didn't show you. That's part of what I'm working on. I'm going to pause and go back up to the lab. Okay, we're back in the lab. So this is another new thing. I have a Heiko HJ3100. It's a combination HEPA carbon fume extraction system. And yeah, you can see Heiko there. So it's a previous generation model. It works great, but it's loud. I've tried a lot of different things to dampen it, and it's actually quite the non-trivial problem because it's low frequency sound. Kitties. Yes, Roxy? Yeah. Oh, sorry about that. So, I don't like, and my partner doesn't like, excessive noise. And the low frequency stuff definitely travels through barriers pretty easily. I at first tried some of those acoustic panels, like the foam, the shaped foam stuff. Does not do anything for low frequency like bass noise or bass. So I ended up doing a kind of research rabbit hole on acoustics management and acoustical sciences. And basically the only cure for this is mass. I can isolate vibration, like you see that pad there, to help make this this floor not basically an accessory speaker, but that is like thick sheet steel, and it's already big enough. So what I'm thinking is an enclosure of high mass drywall, like layers of that, and then a kind of S channel, or maybe multiple curve S channel for the exhaust to allow the air out while still dampening the sound and lowering decibel output. So that's part of the project for the overall like evolution of this bench. And maybe I'll end up integrating that into like the bottom of the rack and then just surround that bottom portion with mass. And I could wire up that switch to route somewhere else, or I could just, it's probably easier just to plug this into a switch and route that switch elsewhere on the bench, so I can turn it on and off remotely and just have that completely covered. Other lessons I've learned with this bench. This table, you can kind of see there's space back there, and there is a piece of sheet steel basically acting as a stabilization brace for the back here. That's wasted space, and I would like an iteration where I don't have that wasted space and where I can take advantage of it. Like a lot of benches you see will have a recessed just shelf in back there, and you can store stuff. And I don't like that I'm basically blocking off that space in there where it could otherwise be useful for things that don't need to be immediately accessible. Another example for that would be an isolation transformer or other power management stuff that I don't need to access controls of on the devices. That could be out of the way back there, and not taking up working real estate. So that's another thing I'd like to resolve is if I do end up doing a full rebuild, which I'd like to do a redesign and rebuild eventually, I'd like to have a workbench or table solution that doesn't block off that room. I might end up finding a pre-made table that'll do this. I might end up just building all of it instead of this bench extension that I kind of built around the table, but that's pretty far in the future. I don't think there's anything else to add to this update. This kind of rambled on pretty long. If you're still with me, thank you. You've been quite patient, and I will see you again later.